Hello, everyone. This is Bruce Burgess with Red Wing Computing Studios, and this is a class that I taught to the senior citizens of Twillett on October 23rd, 2018. So it's a very simple class to help them with their understanding of mobile technologies and how to run their smartphones a little bit better. So we'll begin. This is what I covered: the computer structure and some basic terminology, some internet structures. Talk about the top mobile platforms, basic uses of a smartphone, and learning how to use a smartphone to find answers. So, so all smartphones are computers. So every time you carry a smartphone, you're essentially carrying a computer in your pocket, and this is substantially more computing power than what we used to send the first man on the moon. So I think it's like either 10 times or 100 times or 1,000 times. It's a significant amount. It is amount of computing power comparatively than what we had in the 60s and 70s. So so this is kind of like a basic structure of a computer. You have your centralization, where everything comes in. You have an input, an output, some memory, and a storage device. The storage device basically holds data for long term. So it's like, how do you put it in there? It's like a cassette tape, more cassette tape mentality. So an input is anything that sends information into the computer, like a keyboard, mouse, microphone, camera, touchscreen, data coming from the internet or wherever, just anything going into the system. An output is anything that sends information from the computer, like showing you the display, playing sound with the speakers, anything like that that takes information out of the computer and uses it for something. So memory, which was back, was known as RAM, or random access memory, is the amount of space for calculation. So it's like scratch paper for doing math. So it's the amount of scratch paper you have for the computer to do mathematics. So the more memory, the more math the computer can temporarily hold and do again. And the CPU is just basically the brain of the computer. It's central processing unit, what does all the math. And of course, there's more things in the computer that make it a little, much more complicated, but this is just a very simple outline just to get a basic understanding of what the computer does. It just does math. That's all a computer really does. Math. So, an OS, you've probably heard that, it stands for operating system. It's a computer program that allows the user to use the computer with ease. It's so you don't have to put in floppy disks or punch cards or something to run a program. You can have a software program that's running, and then you just click on something or you type something in, and it allows you to make commands to run other programs. It's just so you can use the computer with relative ease in comparison with how they used to do it with punch cards and disks and things like that. An app or application is just a computer program that the user uses to do something or accomplish a specific task. So, for example, a word processor program like MS Word or something like that is just used to make Word documents. That's an application. So many things are applications. Just a standalone program. That's all an application is. So we're going to talk a little bit about the internet and understanding it. And it's just a network of computers that communicate to each other. So it's nothing. It's amazing, but it's not like like how you say flying carpets or anything crazy like that. It's magical in a way, but it's just computers talking to each other. Um, over and then so every computer connected can talk to each other. And we can cover a brief history. So the United States Defense Department started the internet with a project known as ARPANET, And what this was is to decentralize communications. So during World War II, you would have central communication platforms, like, for example, the Pentagon, and then the Pentagon will send its directions to, let's say, an army base in like England, and then England would then send its directions to the people in the field fighting the war. So what happens if the Pentagon gets attacked by nuclear attack and wipes out that communication? So this project was to decentralize communication. So if there was a case of a nuclear attack or nuclear war, that the United States would be able to communicate with its troops and still effectively fight the war. And then in the 70s, TCP and IP was developed by Kahn and Perf, and that is essentially the contract, let's sort of say, as how to send data through the internet. It's just a protocol or a contract on how to send information. Then somewhere in the early 90s, late 80s, early 90s, this guy called Tim Berners-Lee was credited for inventing the World Wide Web and the first web server. The first web server was built on a Nextcube, which was a computer system of which from a company that Steve Jobs founded after he was left Apple for the first time. So a little tidbit of information there on that. So the internet is similar to the post office. Each computer has a web address or an IP address, and there's a particular server, a particular computer on the internet called a DNS, a domain name server. It is essentially like the phone book of the internet. It uses human-readable domains and finds the number of the address where the person is trying to reach. Data is sent to the address of the device, like a postal worker delivers mail to a physical address or PO box. So here's an example of this. So it goes to the internet, goes to DNS, picks up the data, comes back to the internet, goes back to the device, gives it the data, and then they say, okay, I need this address. Then it goes to the internet, and it goes to the web server where it needs the data. Then it picks up the data, sends it back to the device, and then the device uses that data and displays it for you so you can use it within. This happens within a web browser. So there are two primary mobile platforms out there. There's other ones which don't have as much prominence in culture right now, and the two main ones is going to be Apple and Google Android, so iOS and Android. So Apple's iOS is an iOS system for iPhones, iPads, and Apple products. It's controlled by Apple, both the iPhone hardware and its software. So it's a similar experience across all Apple platforms. And since Apple controls it, it doesn't have the customization as Android, but it could be simpler to use. So for beginning users, it could be easier to learn an iPhone than an Android device, just because it's simpler. However, Apple's devices can tend to be a little bit more expensive than your generic smartphone, which usually runs Android. So Google's Android. Android is one of the most popular operating systems, mobile operating systems. I mean, Android's even run on toasters and other things out there. Android is an open source software, so more companies use it. Thus, it is on most budget phones. It's on your cheap phones and things like that. Android is very customizable, but it can be difficult for beginners just because of all the customization that's along with it. It's just Android runs a Linux kernel. It runs basically some software on top of that, and it's open source, so anybody can look at the code and use the code, and that's why it's used by many different OEMs, which OEM stands for Original Equipment Manufacturer. So Samsung or Google uses it in their Pixel phones or whatever. Now I'm going to show some demonstrations with some simulators to demonstrate the uses of a smartphone. So this is a right here. This is a Android, and this is an iOS. So with the iOS and Android to run any app, you just gotta find the app and you just gotta tap on it. For example, I'm just going to tap on this app, and that would open the app and launch the app. And you just need to push the home button to go back. Okay, and if you are running multiple apps on an iPhone, you can double tap it. Double tap the home button. There you go. And then you can open it up and swipe up to delete the apps. This is how you can free up memory in your phone on your device. And that's it with that. And you can have your settings, and inside your settings, you can have all the things that you need to do to set it up and things like that. Okay, now on an Android, it's a little different. You have this bar button on the Android, which this is like the home, this is like will be like the back, and this will be like the multi-pane. So this will show what apps are running, like a double tap on the home, and you could just hit the X to close the apps. Okay, and it's just like the iPhone. You just tap on this to open up your browser or your program that you're going to use. Now, with the so if I open this up and I want to go back, I can go back, and it takes me back to one page. If I need to go home, I go home. Click that. Here, I just open this up, and I can just close it. The operating system. So those are kind of like the basics between the two. Now, how you could find information, so you can learn on your own. First, you gotta go on iOS. This is a Safari. It's a web browser. So you would click on the web browser, and inside the web browser, you would enter, like you go to Google. So you'll enter Google or something similar, search engine, and you'll go in and you'll type in how to connect my phone to that, how to connect earbuds, you just how to connect my Bluetooth. This is an example, like tooth to iPhone, right? And then you can look it up, and this is just like searching for anything else on the website, and you can find videos and things like that, so you can read and figure out what you need to learn instead of asking your kids how to make a phone call, whatever, right? So that is that. With Google, you go to Chrome. With the Android, you go to Chrome, which is this right here. You click on it, and you do the same. You go here, you just go to Google.com as an example, and in the same thing. How to make a call with an Android, how to do whatever, right? And ask the search engine, and it'll fetch the information from the web, and it'll bring it up. And hopefully this helps you guys out who are pretty new at the smartphones and understanding the smartphones and the computers and the mobile technology some. And hopefully you all have a wonderful day.